Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson.
And I'm Haley Dudley.
And welcome back to the Alien Force Retrospectives. And today we're going to be talking about episode 44 of Ben 10 Alien Force, Time Heals. And I'm just going to say in advance, I'm over at her house right now, and they have a plumber over right now, so we may end up pausing.
Do me a favor.
Yeah, just like that. I'm over at her house. They have a plumber over right now, and not the one that you see in the show, an actual plumber, the one that's we see in real life. They have a plumber over their house, and he might end up coming in and asking questions, so we might end up pausing this video at certain points, like we just did.
Yeah.
So,
sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll try to keep everything as focused as we can. But for now, let's talk about the episode. And despite the fact that the show is called Ben 10 Alien Force, in this episode Ben is a secondary character. The real main character of this episode is Gwen. As it opens up with her in her lucky girl costume breaking into a large mansion, and why she's breaking into this mansion is because she's looking for the Arcomeda Book of Spells. Why is this book here and not a museum, perchance? Well, it's because this particular mansion is owned by Hex and Charmcaster, and I guess Hex would probably keep the book, though I think it probably would be confiscated from him after he got arrested the first time.
Yeah, I would think so too, but
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess maybe he went out and got it. He has a mansion now. Maybe he went straight? Ish? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We don't know. Maybe he's retired. I don't really care. He's not an active villain, so.
no.
Well,
He's just been secretly sitting off to the side gathering cash.
That's funny. Anyway, so bottom line, Gwen steals the Arcomeda Book of Spells and manages to get out. She goes back to her house, and when she gets there, Ben and Kevin are trying to get in because her dad owns the high definition TV and they want to watch the game, which I'm guessing was football when they spoke.
Yeah.
Gwen, of course, seems to be distracted, so while she does
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't really know why we had a pause there. The entire conversation was held just right there.
Yeah, I tried to tap the button, but
You failed!
You
failed!
I did. I'm a failure. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We don't think any less of you.
Yes, you did.
It's not possible.
Oh. I felt that one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
Anyway, so Gwen lets them into her house. And Kevin takes that as code, as she doesn't want to be around him. But when she goes up to her room, she draws a chalk triangle and opens the Arcomeda Book of Spells to a particular page. And she starts floating, reciting and chanting, but just before she goes through with it, Professor Paradox shows up, and he tries to warn her against doing this because apparently the spell she's looking for is a time travel spell. And what she plans to do is go back in time to the first episode of Season 3, in Vengeance of Vilgax, and stop Ben and Kevin from attempting to hack the Omnitrix, because that accident is what led to Kevin becoming mutated in the first place. If it never happens, then odds are Kevin won't be mutated anymore, and she thinks everything will be great, but Professor Paradox says that if she goes through with this, it'll have unforeseen consequences, but at the end of the day, she's not convinced, so he lets her do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So she recites the spell and travels back to that day, and when she gets there, all time is frozen except for her past self, and she managed to convince her past self that it's her by revealing some disgusting secret or whatever.
Yeah, we're not sure what it was.
And I don't think we want to know.
No.
Well, bottom line, she manages to convince her past self, to stop it. So after she leaves, past Gwen throws Ben and Kevin into a wall and destroys the machine that would have hacked the Omnitrix. So it looks like everything's great, and Gwen is transported back to the present, and she's back in her house, back with the same triangle set up and everything. Only she finds that the house is deserted. She can't find Ben or Kevin. She can't find her parents, though her parents weren't there anyway, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But when she goes outside, she finds her entire neighborhood in ruins, and the sky is red, and there's a truck going by that says that's pretty much saying I'm paraphrasing here because these aren't the exact words, but it's pretty much saying submit or suffer.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of the whole resistance is futile type setup.
Yeah, that you kind of would see from like the Borg or Cybermen or pretty much anything that would assimilate you, but. When that happens, she sees a whole bunch of Charmcaster's monsters, and she's able to fend them off enough, but she manages to escape, but she's wondering what the heck's going on. Of course, so her first instinct is, of course, to find Ben and Kevin, but she can't find them. She goes to Mr. Smoothie's, and Ben isn't there, and he's not picking up his phone, and when she goes to Kevin's garage, she finds the place in ruins, and Kevin's car has seen better days. And of course, at that point, she winds up getting attacked by a whole horde of Charmcaster's monsters. But she manages to escape this time. And then Paradox shows up again. She asks him what the heck's going on, and it turns out that in this new set of events, Hex and Charmcaster had attempted to take over the world, and of course Ben, Gwen, and Kevin stepped in to try and stop him, but unfortunately they had a weak link, and that weak link was Kevin. It turns out that in this world, because he wasn't mutated, Kevin was weaker than he would have been had they tried this in the main universe, and unfortunately because of that one weak link, Hex and Charmcaster won. They killed the Gwen of this world, and captured Ben and Kevin, and so they just pretty much began systematically taking over the world. And this is where I kind of have where my nitpicky senses come in, because I don't really understand why this happened here. Like, here's the thing: like the idea of messing with time, with time, going back to a singular event, changing it, and then going forward, and having unforeseen consequences. I get that. Like, they had an episode of that in Doctor Who. One of the companions went to a fortune teller who had an alien that fed off possible what ifs, and she wound up creating an entire reality where where that companion met the Doctor, and it pretty much just led to the whole world getting progressively worse.
I mean, it's kind of, well, the whole going back in time and butterfly effect thing, that is no new news. Yeah. And so, like, my brain goes, first off, why is she, like, she's a smart enough chickie, why is she all of a sudden going, no, this is the only way? Because there are so many things that can go wrong with time travel. Like, everybody knows that.
I think the reason for that is, and this is what my critique actually is, that this didn't happen in the main universe. Usually with those sort of things, it's stuff that happened. And in that Doctor Who episode, these are things that did happen throughout the season with her. It's just that because without her, if she hadn't met the Doctor, then he would have died. So he did die in this new timeline, and so without him, all these things that he would have been able to stop happened, or someone else stopped him, but it sent them out of the picture. Pretty much without the Doctor, the world just kept getting worse and worse. But this never happened in the main universe. Hex and Charmcaster did not attempt to take over the world. We had an episode with Charmcaster, but Hex was not involved with that, and it was mostly just to get at Gwen. Nothing else. Not take over the world.
I'm trying to figure out why they were the two that would take over the world, because, like,
why not Vilgax?
Yeah, that seems the whole much more logical choice of, like, ultimate villain takes over the world because you messed up. That seems like the most obvious choice to go with, because honestly, both Charmcaster and Hex, like, they get the plan in place, but it never fails that they somehow come up short. Not even like, oh, you almost got it, but, like, oh, you forgot a whole section of what to do.
Again, well, here's what I kind of have a problem with it. It's because that didn't happen in the main universe. There was the stuff with Charmcaster, but that's it. Vilgax would make more sense, because that's the stuff they were trying to hack the Omnitrix for. But not this. I'm guessing, I think there might be an explanation. I think they might give a pseudo explanation later, but I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
Because this didn't happen, ergo she couldn't have planned for it. Maybe it was like one of those unintentional side effects, like when Trunks went back in time in Dragon Ball Z, and somehow that created 2 new androids.
Well, see, but my thought process would be, before you go back in time and change something that's kind of a big deal, because Kevin's mutation it's a huge defining part of the series so far. It's a huge part of his character arc alone, and it's kind of like, if you go back and take that out, how is that going to, like, what is he going to be for the rest of the series? What is he? How does he fit with because the series is their history up to this point. Yeah. And so, like, pick any episode you want.
Exactly.
Think of it without him having a mutation. It's like, why wouldn't she have thought of this, though? Because she's a smart enough cookie. She should have known this.
Yeah, they could have picked any moment from any episode and said, oh, because he wasn't mutated, this happened. But no, they had Hex and Charmcaster. Don't know why. It's just that...
I mean, I feel like it's supposed to be, like, grabbing for the people who are really hardcore fans of those two, because they,
Like you? Yeah. Or at least Charmcaster?
Yeah, I really like Charmcaster. Although I felt like she was such a blasé character here. Like, she could have been replaced by literally anyone else, and it would have had the same story and it would have had the same effect. It's just
Yeah, Hex is the real forerunner in this episode.
yeah. I mean, the only thing uniquely Charmcaster is the fact that she was controlling Kevin.
Oh yeah, let's get back to that. Let's get back to that. So again, so Hex says that. So Gwen knows that she has to get that if she wants to fix it, she has to go back in time and stop her past self from warning her other past self. So but again, she needs their common book of spells, and she knows that's in Hex's mansion. And again, and I don't think I mentioned this. We don't know how she knew that was Hex's mansion. Maybe she looked it up. Maybe she found his real name.
She just sat down and Googled them.
Okay, looking
Hex's mansion.
No, I'm not looking for porn.
That was not the type of mansion I meant.
But yeah, pretty much Paradox teleports him and Gwen to the mansion, and it turns out that when Hex and Charmcaster captured Kevin, just as an added bit of screw you, Charmcaster had Kevin absorb the material of one of her rock monsters, thus allowing him to control thus allowing her to control him just as easily as one of her monsters. And for some reason, he's still wearing the Speedo, not even his regular clothes. I don't know why. I guess the Speedo is his Season 3 uniform.
Yeah.
I don't think you're complaining.
I mean, like, it's not horrible, but
why is the Speedo consistent between timelines?
I mean, you can't let stuff just hang around and flop
But why
around.
the Speedo? Why can't he be dressed like
What do you want him to do? Like
dressed how he normally would? The jacket, or at least his shirt.
But
or
see,
something.
then you couldn't see those really cool glowy tattoos.
It would stick out. He absorbs the material. I don't know. This is not my point. My point is I don't know why it was the Speedo. Bottom line, he's just pretty much mindless.
I appreciate that point though of the whole of Charmcaster turning him into her little minion, because that's a big psychological move on her part. It's like,
that is her way of pretty much just messing with everyone, and that's total Charmcaster. But
see, she has these really great moments, and honestly, I'm a firm believer if she took all of these really good ideas that like happen once an episode and then it all kind of snowballs, but like if she took all of those really good ideas, just kind of mushed them together, she could totally be the best villain in this.
Well, she could, but in this, and she does do that for certain episodes in her introduction, in A Change of Face, and even in what was it again? In Charm's Way. That was the episode name. That's because I had you for that one.
Yes.
And that's the whole reason I brought you back. I wanted you to do this one with me too, because Charmcaster and Hex are the villains. So Gwen tries running in. Charmcaster does try heading her off and reveals she was the one that killed her, and she likes to remind everyone of that, to the point where even Gwen gets annoyed by it.
Yeah.
But Gwen manages to pretty much just take her out very easily, and she goes inside, goes into Hex's library, tries finding the Arcana Book of Spells, but it turns out Hex was expecting her, and this might explain why this event didn't happen in the main universe, because Hex actually does know that time was altered. So maybe when time was altered, because he says he knows about it through magic, he knows with magic that he knows that this is not the right timeline, that this is not how things are supposed to be. So maybe when time was altered in this new timeline, he realized, oh, something's not right. I think maybe we can abuse this.
Sorry, I'm just picturing Hex like, something's off in the universe. My time to shine.
I think that would kind of explain it maybe a little. Like he knew something was wrong, so he decided to take advantage of it. So that would explain it. But bottom line, he knows that if Gwen goes back in time and stops Kevin from getting and turns everything back, then he'll lose all this. So he's keeping the Arcana Book of Spells on standby, and at that point, Charmcaster flies in, and to try and get rid of and to take care of Gwen, she brings in Kevin, and Gwen, of course, can't bring herself to fight him. It's still Kevin under there, even though he can't think.
He's a mindless rock monster.
Well, it's still Kevin.
Yeah. And there's kind of a moment.
Yeah, and it looks like he falters for a second, just a second before he goes back to being that way. But bottom line, Gwen can't fight him, so she creates a hole that she falls through. But she falls so many floors down that she goes into the dungeon, and that's where she finds Ben, chained to the wall as Spider Monkey. She manages to break him free, transforms back, and he's just surprised to see her because, again, from his perspective, she died. She wants to try and set everything right, but at that point, Charmcaster and Hex and the monsters come in. So Ben and Gwen Ben and Gwen fight them off, and Gwen says she needs to get that book away from Hex. So Ben goes swamp fire to try and fight off the rock monsters. They actually do manage to knock Hex out and get the book away from him. But unfortunately, Ben can't do much fighting as they imply that he's been tortured heavily. Like, we don't see the wounds, but he can barely stand up. And then just before he leaves, the Omnitrix actually shudders and sparks before it turns him back, and he collapses. So clearly his physical state, they either have done either his physical state is tied to the Omnitrix, or they did something to the Omnitrix. Bottom line, he's not in a good shape to fight. So Gwen says that she has to cast a spell to do this, and while Ben says he trusts her and he'll hold them off as best he can. So Gwen runs off. Ben goes alien to fight them. We don't see which alien, but Gwen tries getting the spell ready. Hex tries one last go at her, but she manages to cast the spell and goes back in time. And so when she gets there, she manages to convince both the past selves it's her by mentioning that the lock on her locker is broken, and they just keep it there so that people think it's not.
Yeah. See, the thing that just kills me is that just her going back, all of them are the exact same.
And yet they somehow know who is who.
Yep, and then, Sam made a great point. They just accidentally left the wrong one there and left.
That's our story here. They have it turns out that that actually would have been funny.
That would have been great.
They leave the wrong ones, like, hey, so let's go back to our present. Wait, this is my present. Oh, crap.
Wait, this is my future. Oh, no.
That's what Kevin looks like? Oh, God, no, I really have to stop it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Someone needs to write this.
Yeah, I'm sure someone already has. But anyway, bottom line, they erase the then present Gwen's memory of this so that everything will go exactly as it's supposed to. And so Gwen returns to the present. They imply that maybe her memory is erased of this event, but bottom line, everything's back to normal. Kevin's still mutated. The world isn't destroyed, and Gwen gives Kevin a hug because she's glad that he's at least still okay. That he's at least still himself, at least. And so they go out. They're about to go to Mr. Smoothie's, but Paradox is waiting outside. They ask him what's wrong, and he just says no, everything's good, and vanishes. So overall, what did you think of the episode?
I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it's the same whole, I want to do something I'm going to go back in time and make it all better, and then, everything kind of just goes to hell, but...
Goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, it's, that stereotypical episode, but it was still good. I am always a fan of seeing Charmcaster, and, I love her.
Yeah.
But, I felt like I personally didn't agree with having the Charmcaster and Hex as the main villains for this episode, just because it didn't fit, and then the way that they were written in there, they could have easily been replaced by literally anyone else, and the story would have been exactly the same.
Yeah, world goes to hell, has to stop it.
Yeah, and it's, it's kind of disappointing because I hate to see such a talented young villain be so underutilized.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Otherwise, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts are pretty much the same. I think this is a good episode overall. And for one thing, I like that we get to see at least Hex again, because the last time you saw him was in Don't Drink the Water. In that episode, and in that episode, he was turned into at least a 4-year-old, or at least a 10-year-old, or a kid. Bottom line, Charmcaster is bigger than him. They imply, and they say, and I'm guessing he did age back to normal very quickly, because they said in that episode that the effects of the fountain, that you have to, in order to stay young, you have to keep drinking the Fountain of Youth. But bottom line, I like seeing Hex again, and while it does raise the question of what he's been doing all this time, I'm okay that we get to at least see him as an active force. Like, he knows what's going on. He knows that, and I like seeing him kind of be grandiose. I like seeing his arrogant attitude back. Like, in this case, he is more demure, but at the littlest thing that goes wrong, he does just lose his shit. Like, the first example being when Gwen manages to escape, he just calls Charmcaster a fool. Like, he not just, you fool, like, he just gets out of his chair and yells it, like, you fool!
And, Charmcaster, of course, goes, like, you didn't know either.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's what Hex would do. Nothing is his fault. He's the one. Nope, it's everyone else's fault. But, actually, when I think about it, while from a narrative point of view, it doesn't make sense why Hex and Charmcaster are the villains. I think because they're focusing this episode on Gwen, it kind of makes sense, because they're more her villains, so
Yeah,
to speak. Because
they are.
she meant like, because in the change of face, while Charmcaster was going after Ben, it's Gwen that she switched bodies with, Gwen that she kind of dueled with, and Gwen was the one who stole her spellbook. Hex was, and with Hex, he blames her for sending him to jail, and then when she comes out of jail again, he's very willing to get Lucky Girl. They're more her villains, so like from a narrative standpoint, it doesn't really make sense. But I think it would actually make sense that if Gwen is the center of focus, that they are the ones that she duels with. Actually,
yeah, but at the same time, like I feel like that's the only reason they were chosen.
Yeah,
it was because it was specifically related to Gwen.
Exactly.
Which which I feel like Gwen could take on more than just Hex and Charmcaster too. It's like,
yeah, I agree. Like there's a number of villains they could have done.
Yeah, and so I feel like personally, I feel like it was just a lazy choice because
yeah, I get
it's an episode about Gwen. Who does she fight? Oh well, she has that thing with Charmcaster. We could throw Hex in there.
They could have also done Darkstar. Because that was a villain they faced in season 3, and he has a personal connection to Gwen.
Yeah.
So that could have easily been him. Like without Kevin there, without Kevin there.
Heck, they could have made some new power that rose up too. I mean, it could.
I personally think it should have been a threat that we've seen at least. But again, from a narrative standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
No.
But again, I like seeing the villains. They're still nice and fun to watch. They're still nice and fun to watch. I kind of like seeing this dystopian world too. That's one of the nice things that I like in these types of stories. Just kind of seeing how far everything would fall just because of this one little decision. Like the butterfly. Like I'm okay with that sort of thing.
That reminds me. I was going to comment on when Gwen was at Kevin's car and she was looking for him and everything, and she turns around and there's a army of these stone minions all around. I mean, that's a bit overkill, but like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think that helps really set the standard for how bad it was. Like this is a world where Hex and Charmcaster not only won, but they pretty much wiped the floor with anybody that was in their way. And the fact that they have even Paradox says that their power is actually stronger in this timeline. And so the fact that Charmcaster probably would have an entire army of these things that are beck and call would make sense if those were the circumstances.
Yeah. I think it just kind of raised them to a different level, because they were like minor villains, and then they kind of upgraded to,
like they were once
standard, and now it's they have potential, which is the only cool thing I think happened with them in this episode, is that now they're a very formidable opponent.
Another thing I like too is that I like that this was a Gwen-centered episode too. Like while it is a Ben 10 show, and even when I first watched this as a kid, I was thinking, well, where's Ben? Where's Ben? This is a Ben 10. This is Ben 10. Why isn't Ben the main character? No, like now that I'm older, I actually do appreciate it more because I like it. Does actually make sense with the conflict that even they set up in Charm's way, that she's just looking for some way to cure Kevin. Then she probably would get this desperate to do something like this if given the circumstances, and that she does want Kevin to feel normal again in that case.
I mean, I just find it funny that every time that I do one of these with you, it's on an episode where Ben is a minor footnote character.
He wasn't a footnote character in Alien Swarm.
Well, no, but that's different because that's a movie. I'm talking about the show. Like, I mean, we did. Like, all of them have been with Charmcaster, basically, the ones that I've been.
I didn't do it. Well, I didn't do a change of face with you. But then again, that was on my birthday, so I don't know.
Happy birthday to you.
No. This is months too early, or too late. I don't care. Bottom line,
in the middle.
It's somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I don't really care either. But bottom line, not the right day. Well, either way, that's the whole reason I wanted you to come with it, because you like Charmcaster.
I appreciate it. I find it funny because you talk about how it's nice to see Gwen in the forefront instead of Ben, and like, I'm sitting here, what are you talking about? I only ever see her in the forefront.
Welcome. Well, that's what happens when you're a guest star.
I know. It's great.
Yeah, you don't have to do these every week.
Yeah, I get to see my favorite characters, and then
the rest of the week, hell, no, they can go to hell for all I care. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, bottom line, again, I like that, and I'm a sucker for time travel stuff. But my big problems with the episode are that the threat wasn't really something that didn't really. Yeah. Again, there's that.
I mean, it
Yeah.
seemed like the majority of the episode was her casting the spell, her figuring out what was going on, and then there was like a 2 seconds of fighting, and then everything's fine.
No, I would disagree. She actually did fight the rock monsters when she encountered them.
Well, yeah, but, that was a part of her figuring out what's going on rather than just, like, actually trying to solve the issue.
How dare they have a story structure?
I know, right? But it's just so basic.
Well, they have to build it up. I will argue with you on that one. They do have to actually build up the threat and everything.
Yeah, but the threat, they had, okay, so 20-minute episode.
Yeah.
They had 10 minutes of build up, 5 minutes of conflict, 5 minutes resolution. And the conflict was half of it was her running away, and then the other half was her casting a spell. Argue with me, I dare you.
Yeah, I would still think there was still more to it than that.
Mm-hmm. I still liked it. I still thought it was pretty good. It's just that,
Well,
I felt like it could have been.
I agree with you on that one, though. Again, I feel like this episode did have potential in some areas, because, again, there's the whole time travel aspect, and yeah, if you actually do think about it, if Kevin wasn't mutated, it would probably have a big effect on certain aspects of Ben 10 Alien Force. There are threats that they probably wouldn't be able to cover, because Kevin learned about how the shapeshifting and all that stuff, it probably would, and it would lead to conflicts going differently, things going just differently, and of course, if you have that time travel story, it's going to be something along the line that pretty much it would screw the pooch in an unintentional way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I think a big problem with it would be that they had to resort to using Hex and Charmcaster. Maybe that Ben could have been utilized more, but again, Gwen-centered episode, so I don't know. But again, yeah, that's the thing. Ben does, like I said, Ben does go alien. We do see him do stuff in the episode, but it's only for the climax, and you only see 2 aliens.
Yeah.
One's chained to the wall, and then the other does all the fighting.
Yeah.
So, again, I do actually kind of like seeing that too. That these are main characters that we've seen throughout the show too. Just suddenly brought down. Even Kevin's was. While I complain about the Speedo, to see him as the rock monster being mindless.
Yeah.
To see it, and even just making something as and for Charmcaster, she's having a ball with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like all he really does, in the beginning, she's having Kevin move rocks, and then as he misses the pilot for less like a centimeter, she says, "Oh, poor clumsy Kevin," and she attacks him. Mm-hmm. To her, that's fun because this was Gwen's boyfriend, and she controls him. Mm-hmm. Considering that it's Kevin, I'm surprised she didn't make him a sex toy.
You don't know. You don't know what happens in the bedroom.
Oh, that would be. Yeah. Now that. Yeah. 2 fanfics. One where they left the wrong Gwen, and that one. Someone put that up there somewhere. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that is.
Yeah, I'm sure too.
The internet is an amazing place.
Are you sure?
Are
you sure you're not supposed to use air quotes there?
I mean, I think it's an amazing place. You
can
find all
I know the darker sides of the internet, but I wouldn't. Yeah. But it's still
Tumblr's my friend. I love Tumblr.
I post these on Tumblr, so.
Oh, I love Tumblr.
Yeah. So anyway, well, I think that's really all we have to say. We both agree it was a nice episode, and while we don't think Hex and Charmcaster really needed to be the villains for this episode, we think they did their job well enough. Mm-hmm. As the villains of the episode. I like seeing Hex again. They do actually alter his design a little. It's still the skull makeup, and I actually just realized he got out of bed wearing that. I'm starting
to think that's just his face.
He gets up in the morning and thinks, yes, this is what I'm going for.
Wouldn't it be even better, though, if, he was, a teenage witch type thing, warlock, wizard, whatever, sorcerer type thing. He goes, I want a look that's gonna make me stand out and show how badass I am. And he goes into a tattoo parlor. Make me look like this!
But the makeup disappeared when he turned to a kid, and I'm getting off topic.
Well, if he's a kid, then kids can't go get tattoos.
But the tattoo wouldn't have faded, and I'm still getting off topic. Trying to wrap this up, and we're talking about why Hex is wearing makeup when he's going to bed.
Okay, maybe you should just cut it and then just say goodbye, because
no,
otherwise
I have to wrap this up. I have to wrap this up. So anyway, yeah. while they weren't needed, they still did their job well. I loved seeing this kind of dark future. I kind of like seeing Gwen go to these lengths. I think the action was fun. They did have some funny lines here and there, not a lot, but just some funny stuff. And I like Paradox too. That's my own.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do much, but I loved how he just kind of rubbed Gwen's face and everything while still trying to be helpful. So, yeah, on the whole, nice episode. Could have been better, but it wasn't. But for what it was still a good episode. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say. I'm Sam Johnson.
I'm Haley Dudley.
And tune in next week as we take a look at the beginning of the end of Ben 10 Alien Force. See you then.